All right, let's bring you back to our top story this Tuesday. The unemployment rate ticking back up to 32.1% in the fourth quarter of the year after falling to 31.9% in the previous quarter. The number of employed people fell by 22,000 to 16.7 million over that period, while the number of people without jobs rose by 46,000 to 7.9 million. Perhaps just a good idea to let that number sink in. 7.9 million people in our country are unemployed. The number of people who were not economically active for reasons other than being discouraged jumped by 218,000 to 13.4 million. These figures from Statistics South Africa also revealing that discouraged work seekers fell by 107,000 in the fourth quarter compared to the previous 3 months. Let's bring in our business reporter, Ntokozo Khumalo, break down some of those numbers for us. Ntokozo, thanks very much indeed for coming into studio. And of course, Michelle, as our viewers would have just seen, you were getting the input of businesses who were already, before this announcement by Stats SA this morning, feeling the impact of these employment numbers.
And that really points to the bottom line, Michelle, that the country desperately needs to see economic growth, because without real economic growth, some economists saying above 3%, others saying 5% or more, for us to see, businesses being able to make that dent in the job market. And as you rightfully said, one of those companies that I did speak to earlier in the week saying, while they are starting to be a little bit more optimistic about the industry, contracts are just not coming in as they used to. They're not able to create jobs like they used to. So still a very bleak picture that we have. And it's discouraging because the fourth quarter usually is where those jobs are created over the festive season, retail being busy. So it is rather discouraging numbers when it comes to what we're likely to see for the year going forward. It's quite a large percentage to see going up over that quarter.
And that's in the context. I mean, you're talking 3% growth, 5% growth is what we need to create the kinds of jobs that will make a dent in our unemployment numbers. The IMF's projection puts us at 1%.
And that's likely to be the case for the next few years. Ahead of the national budget tomorrow, we've been listening in from, your Nedbanks, other standard banks and other large banks, Bank of America, your IMFs and World Banks, sort of previewing what they expect and forecast of the South African economy. And none of them have forecasts of anything above 1.5%. So it's not something that we're going to see anytime soon. And of course, that triple threat in the budgets. We have low revenues, high debts. We need to curb on spending. And as we heard from Tebogo in the construction industry, close to 100 million that's been cut in programs for that industry. So you can already imagine then that how that affects that industry's growth prospects and therefore its job creation ability. And that's really across the board. And what we've seen over the last, couple of days is the mining industry feeling that pressure, cutting jobs. Kumba also announcing that they're going to be cutting jobs. So that's very, very concerning when you're seeing those job cuts coming in from industries such as mining and manufacturing. It doesn't paint a pretty picture.
Because they're the big employers, aren't they? Mining specifically.
Absolutely. And what's interesting with the fourth quarter data as well is that it's the formal sector that actually saw a decrease in employment, over 128,000 jobs lost in that quarter. And why that's relevant is the formal sector is usually the job creator. So it goes again to point to just those effects of the structural issues in the economy, that business confidence dropping because of load shedding, because of logistics issues, translating now to jobs being lost as companies are really struggling under the rising cost of doing business because of the current economic conditions.
Yeah, I'm interested to look at some of these numbers. We talk about 7.9 million people in our country being unemployed, but then we also talk about the number of people who are not economically active for reasons other than being discouraged from seeking employment, going up to 13.4 million. So there's quite a big disparity between those two numbers. Can you explain it for us?
And that's what economists that I've been speaking to, Michelle, has been highlighting, especially just after we got those matric results, because it goes to speak to who are those economically inactive that are not discouraged. And we haven't quite gotten that.
So they're still looking for jobs.
They're still looking for jobs. They're not yet discouraged, but they're not active in the economy. So those are likely a large portion of those young people who just finished matric, who just finished varsity, about to enter the labor force, or even those graduates who have been sitting at home for the last 2-3 years trying to find an employment opportunity. Specific to the construction industry is young people saying they're not even able to get those internship opportunities, those opportunities to gain experience. So a lot of those inactive but not discouraged are the young people that are qualified, that are trying to get into the market, but just aren't getting that break. And of course, Michelle, a picture that hasn't changed is that young people are still the most vulnerable in the labor market. So clearly, those challenges for young people to enter the workplace intensifying.
Yeah, and unemployment remaining the highest among black African youth, women also remaining the most vulnerable insofar as the labor market is concerned. Those are two really touchstone issues that we are struggling to change.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is where then those parallels between the budget and things like unemployment comes in, because it begs to raises the question on just how much are we investing on ensuring that we deliver those right skills for young people, to ensure that women are empowered in the labor market. So that raises, once again, issues on, is South Africa spending its money where we should be when it comes to really ensuring that the labor market has the right skills and that women and youth are brought along for the journey as well? Yeah,
you know, when the President was delivering his State of the Nation address a couple of weeks ago, he talked about the number of job opportunities the presidential employment plan created. And do these numbers differentiate between jobs? So not just opportunities or internships, but actual contract work for a period of time? Or does it just say employed period in that quarter? Employed people in that quarter.
Employed people in that quarter.
So it may well be for a couple of weeks.
It might, exactly, because we are calculating those 3 months. So Stats SA is looking at those 3 months of who was employed and raising, you know, those opportunities, those job opportunities. Economists also concerned that it gives a skewed picture of what the real picture is.
It absolutely does, right?
Because temporary jobs, if someone is employed for 3 months, that doesn't necessarily then mean we're seeing an improvement in our real unemployment numbers. So it again goes to that whole, are we taking the 32.1% or are we going to take the expanded definition of unemployment, which brings a more realistic picture that shows that close to half of, working age South Africans are unemployed.
Yeah, absolutely. The Statistician General, Risenga Maluleke, revealing these numbers just about an hour or so ago. We are trying to get the Statistician General on the line, and once we do so, Ntokozo Khumalo, you'll come back into studio and you'll have that conversation with him, break down a few more of those important numbers. But that essentially is your breaking news story on this Tuesday afternoon. The unemployment rate ticking up to 32.1%. That's in the fourth quarter of the year. And, of course, the previous quarter was at 31.9%. So ticking up ever so slightly, but that does translate to 7.9 million unemployed people in the country.